All right, so you're here because you want to like really get to the heart of a big story, uh, fast, but without missing anything important, right?
Exactly. And this one is huge. We're going deep into the history of Middle-earth uh, with the Silmarillion.
Yeah, this is like the ultimate background lore for the Lord of the Rings, everything that sets the stage.
It really is. And we've got sources that cover the whole timeline. I mean, from the very beginning of creation to the start of the Third Age.
5 big parts to this whole thing. You've got the creation myth itself, then the story of the Valar, these like godlike beings.
Right. And then, of course, the central story of the Silmarils in the First Age. And then after that, we've got the rise and fall of Numenor in the Second Age.
And finally, how the rings of power were forged, which leads directly into the Third Age. So much ground to cover.
Yeah, the heart of it all is the Quinta Silmarillion. That's the part that really focuses on these three incredible jewels created by this elf, Fëanor.
Okay, so let's dive in then, right back to the very beginning with the Ainul and Daily.
Perfect. So imagine this. Before anything exists, you have Eru Ilúvatar, and he brings the entire cosmos, into being through this amazing music.
Composed by the Ainur, these powerful, timeless spirits.
Right. But here's the thing. Melkor, the most powerful of all the Ainur, he introduces this discordant theme into the music. It's like a rebellion against the harmony.
Yeah, and that tension like really reverberates throughout.
Yeah.
It doesn't just disappear. And when the music ends, Ilúvatar shows the Ainur a vision of Arda, the world.
And a lot of them choose to enter into Arda. Those become the Valar, the most powerful ones.
And then there were the Mare, who are like lesser spirits that help them.
Exactly. So you've got this fundamental conflict from the very beginning. It's like the core of the entire story that follows. And then the Valar, they start shaping Arda.
Getting it ready for the arrival of the elves and men who are the children of Ilúvatar.
But Melkor, he can't help himself. He's always interfering, trying to dominate everything. He even destroys the 2 lamps, which were the original sources of light.
So the Valar decide to head west to Aman, where they create the 2 trees, Telperion and Laurelin, to light up their new realm of Valinor.
It's during this time that Ole, he's the Vala of craftsmanship, creates the Dwarves. But it's actually Ilúvatar who gives them true independent life.
So that's interesting. It's like even the Valar aren't all powerful. And then what happens?
Well, then you have the Elves, the Quendi, awakening in Middle-earth during the years of the trees.
Varda's stars signal their arrival. And then Aromi, he's the one who finds them, right?
He is. So the Valar have this big decision to make. How do they protect these new beings? They decide to go to war against Melkor.
Capture him and imprison him in Valinor. So that's gotta be the end of Melkor, right? I mean, he's locked up.
Well, not quite, but yeah. They do invite the elves to come live with them in Valinor for safety. And this actually leads to a major division among the elves.
The Sundering, right? Some of them, the Eldar, decide to head west. But then they split into different groups, like the Noldor and Vanir.
And then you have others like the Avari and the Sindar who choose to stay in Middle-earth. Each group goes down its own path.
And this seemingly good thing, the invitation, it actually has some pretty huge consequences later on.
It really does. And then you've got Fëanor coming onto the scene with his amazing creation.
The Silmarils, right in Valinor. He creates these unbelievable jewels that contain the light of the 2 trees.
And they're hallowed by Varda herself, which makes them, like, immune to any evil touch.
But Melkor, even though he's imprisoned, he finds a way to stir up trouble, especially with Fëanor. And then, with the help of this creature, Ungoliant pure darkness, they destroy the 2 trees.
And steal the Silmarils.
And kill Finwë, who was Fëanor's father. That's just devastating.
It really is. So understandably, Fëanor is consumed by rage. He even renames Melkor, calling him Morgoth now.
And he's convinced that the Valar also want the Silmarils, so he refuses to give them up.
He and his sons take this oath to reclaim the Silmarils no matter what. And this leads to a rebellion that takes the Noldor back to Middle-earth.
That oath is like the driving force behind the First Age, which is just full of wars against Morgoth and Beleriand.
Yeah, you've got major battles like the Dagor Bragollach, where Morgoth breaks the siege of Angband, which had been going on for years.
And then the Nirnaeth Arnodiad, which was a terrible defeat for the elves and their allies, even the men and the dwarves who fought with them.
Right, and throughout all this, there are these incredible stories of heroism and tragedy, like Beren and Luthien who try to steal a Silmaril from Morgoth.
And the story of Turin Turambar.
Yeah.
So much loss, so many elven kingdoms fall during this age.
It's a dark time. But then the First Age ends with this epic battle, the War of Wrath.
Arendil. He sails to Valinor with one of the Silmarils and pleads with the Valar to help. And they do. They come in with full force and destroy Morgoth's fortress, Angband.
Morgoth is defeated and banished from the world, but Beleriand is pretty much destroyed in the process.
What a price to pay. But it sets the stage for the Second Age. And that's when Sauron, who was Morgoth's most trusted lieutenant, starts to rise to power.
He's cunning, though. He tricks the elves by calling himself Anatar and helps them forge the rings of power.
But secretly, he's forging his own ring in Mordor, the One Ring, to control them all.
The elves realize what he's up to, and it leads to another war. And all this is happening as the kingdom of Numenor is gaining power in the west.
Numenor, those were the descendants of the men who helped fight Morgoth, right?
They are, but Sauron's influence eventually corrupts Numenor, and it's destroyed by Ilúvatar himself. But some of them managed to escape.
Led by Elendil, they found the kingdoms of Arda and Gondor in Middle-earth, which then leads to the War of the Last Alliance against Sauron.
Exactly. And in this war, Sauron is defeated, but Isildur takes the One Ring for himself, which, as you know, leads right into the events of the Third Age and the Lord of the Rings.
Wow, so much history. So much happens before we even get to Frodo and the ring.
And it all connects. I mean, think about it. Elrond, Galadriel, even Gandalf, who was Olorin back then, their stories start way back in those earlier ages.
And Sauron, understanding who he was before, a servant of Morgoth, that adds so much depth to his character. And some of the objects, too.
Definitely, like the light of the Silmarils that Galadriel keeps in her file. And the Rings of Power, those are ancient and so powerful, even Aragorn.
He's a descendant of the Númenóreans, so his lineage goes back to the Second Age. It's all connected.
It really is. The Silmarillion is this epic story of creation, conflict, and the legacy of the past. And it really makes you think about how the choices people make can have repercussions for generations.
It's a constant struggle against evil. And we see how the events of the First and Second Age set the stage for The Lord of the Rings.
It gives you this much deeper appreciation for Tolkien's whole world. You understand the motivations, the sacrifices, the hope, and the fear that drives everyone in The Lord of the Rings.
It's like these ancient struggles, even though they're part of a fictional world, they kind of mirror our own struggles against darkness in the real world. Pretty amazing stuff.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.